to the Direct Response and Social Media Marketing Podcast for Bootstrapped Entrepreneurs. I'm Ian Utilli, your host, here with a couple guests today. I have Raymond St. Martin, my business partner and the president of Guerrilla Branders, as well as our friend Trent Dilfer. Thanks for joining us today, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
The ball is in your court. The ball is in your court.
I'm just impressed how you do this whole intro thing.
Yeah, you just kind of wing it and have fun with the camera. The people, they want to hear what you have to say, though. So what we're hoping you can chat with us about, this is the audience, whether they're listening on iTunes or watching on YouTube, these people are bootstrapped entrepreneurs, right? These are the entrepreneurs that hit the island and burn the boat, right? Yeah. They cross the bridge and cut the line. If they don't succeed, they die, right? Bankruptcy is not the only option. I mean, divorce, they have to win.
Do not take it lightly.
Ultimate competitive people. Yeah. They don't have funding. They don't have enough employees. They don't have enough tools, but they're trying to make it happen. And of course, we have the folks that tune in around marketing. But for you being here today, and all that you've accomplished around leadership, I would just love for you to share with our audience and with us, I'm interested in what you have to say, around what you've learned as a quarterback, as a coach, and how that relates to leadership and entrepreneurship. So thanks for being here, and my ears are attentive.
Wow, it's quite a tee up.
Yeah.
When you talk about bootstrapping entrepreneurship, I think about 3rd and 18. The odds are totally against you.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything that I talk about is usually the football context, because as you two don't know, I don't know much about anything else. But it's these impossible situations that you kind of put yourself in.
Yeah.
But they're not impossible if you look at them through the right lens.
Yeah.
And you guys have heard me say this before. The edge of uncomfortable is where learning begins, and extreme uncomfortableness is where you find greatness. And I came up with that because I kept putting myself in these crappy situations in football. But when you have to dig yourself out of a hole, when you have to, find something inside of you that you didn't know was there, now deep learning happens, and you start piling those learning moments on top of each other, and then you really get uncomfortable, right? You really, like you said, life or death for some of these people. Right. I mean, they're talking about not just financial life or death, but social life or death, and then with their families. Right. That you will find something inside you didn't know was there. We have so much more capacity than people give us credit for. Right. And we will dig deep enough, and that's where the greatness is found. That's where whatever potential for greatness we have, that's where it tends to surface. So I guess, we'll drill a lot deeper into this stuff, but through my experiences, and obviously in a football context, that's why you can't view failure. The word doesn't even exist in my home's vocabulary. It's a temporary setback. Yeah. Big difference between failure and temporary setback. Because when you look at it as a temporary setback, now you're forward thinking. Because I know this is temporary. I know my future has something better in store. And I know I've learned from my setbacks. And again, I'm going to pile up those learning moments. I'm going to package them up in something really cool so I can rip it later on when I need to. So 3rd and 18, I might not convert this in 3rd and 18, but I'm going to learn something from this 3rd and 18. And ironically, the year we won the Super Bowl, we converted a huge 3rd and, I want to say it was 15 against Tennessee to win the division with our backs against the wall. And didn't make them all that year. Yeah. We made the one we had to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are some games in football that are similar to an entrepreneur's pursuit. We were talking about failure and setbacks. You might be facing a team that just that day is going to kick your butt. Like, you're out there, you're doing everything you can. Yep. And there's a certain point where you've gone out, you've tried. It's you're 3 and out, you're 3 and out, you're 3 and out. They're marching the ball downfield, taking 9 minutes
to
run.
You're taking it on the chin.
They're just running the ball. They have Jamal Lewis. You don't have Jamal Lewis,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
You have to try to defend Jamal Lewis. Some people will see that as, okay, we have a setback, we have a setback, we have a setback. But there is a time when the Dilfers come off the field. There is a time when the Jamal Lewises come off the field because you want to save them for next week. That's very close to the entrepreneurial journey as you're facing these setbacks in your business. You think it's going to happen. I've been through that personally. I think it's going to happen. This is going to work. And you're facing setbacks. You keep reinvesting. You're putting everything into it. And finally you say, it's over. I've learned my lesson. I'm going to pull everything in, and I'm going to get ready for next week. Next week is a new game. Maybe it's a new business. Maybe it's a new thing. Maybe you're pivoting your business. How do you I mean, as a quarterback, what does that feel like? You have setback after setback after setback, and you know you don't want to give up. You don't want the coach to pull you. You're down 5 touchdowns with 6 minutes to play. You still think you can win. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's good, because I think I look back at my career, and now you're getting personal with me. One of my greatest gifts was one of my worst things I did as well, and that's I had a great competitive will. Like, from the time I was really young, I knew how to dig deep and fight and grind and never give up and compete till death, basically. And that hurt me on the football field many times, because I tried to force a square peg into a round hole. Literally, sometimes I tried to force this into places it shouldn't go. And I think that when I remember getting beat in Tampa those years, where the Packers would be up 4 touchdowns in the second quarter, and you're like, no, I got this. We're going to come back. And now we're down 5 touchdowns. And now it's 45-10, and the stands are empty, and there's 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But I'm playing every down, life or death, because your pride, your will, your spirit, it matters. And it forced me to do some dumb things on the football field, but it's also what kept me going. The next Monday when I went in there and I had to watch the films, like, throwing up in my mouth because I'm watching. It's also what got me in the weight room Monday afternoon after the film, and got me running, and got me watching film. And then Tuesday coming in my off day and working on, so that didn't happen again. And the pain of the temporary setback that we had on Sunday, I used to use the word motivated me to get back into it, but I realized later on it really inspired me. It inspired me to be the best I can be, and I know I won't be in the Hall of Fame. I'll never be called a great quarterback. I will be called a great competitor. I will have made my mark in the NFL, because I was inspired to make sure that when I left the game, that I'd be remembered for something. And it was that preparation, it was that will, it was that competitive spirit that was built by the pain of those setbacks. So that's probably it probably resonates with people listening right now, that they have some scars. Right? They've made some mistakes. They've had to, as you say, pivot their business plan, or maybe even shut down and start something new. Doesn't mean you're a failure. But I do tell people, don't shy away from that scar tissue. Because sometimes that scar tissue, what toughens us up, and what allows us to be successful the next time and have less of those temporary setbacks.
Between Raymond and I, we have maybe 40 years as a bootstrapped entrepreneurs out in our career. And there's this progression as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, right? I mean, at one point, you're second string, right? You're trying to learn from somebody, you're trying to earn your spot, you're trying to get that sales job, or you're trying to get that management position, or maybe you're looking towards that leadership position. And then as you go from there, you start your own company, and maybe you're out there, you're in the limelight. And then eventually, at some point, there's transitions, at least during seasons, where it becomes more about legacy. Significance, coaching others, grabbing the least and gaining the most from them, as you've said, taking the best and gaining the best from them, as you've mentioned to us. So there's like this transition as an entrepreneur, and there's this life cycle, and sometimes you go back and you start over again. It's a cycle, like, I'm gonna start a new company, I'm gonna find new people to invest in, I'm gonna find new mentors to look to. I know there's gotta be a ton of parallels in your mind in the athletic world of being like a second string, a first string, the impact maybe you've made on the quarterbacks that you've been on the teams with them, and then eventually becoming a coach. Can you just talk about that cycle that you've seen in sports, and how that relates to leadership in the entrepreneur's world?
Well, I'll speak mainly in the sports context. I'll let you build the bridge.
Please.
This is context. But think about it. I think everybody and I bet you most people listening they played Little League Baseball, or they played on a basketball team, or they, played Pop Warner football, or whatever it is. You start young, whenever it is, you first fall in love with the ball, is what I always say, and then you start learning stuff. Just call it stuff. And you learn a bunch of stuff combined with some physical stuff, and you're either going to play through junior high, high school, college, maybe you're lucky you play in the NFL. Doesn't really matter, but at some point, all this stuff is going to end. What do you do with all that stuff? Because you don't just want to say, well, I invested 8 years of my life in sports, and I learned a bunch of stuff, and now I'm just going to go put it in a closet and go to high school and college and learn some more stuff and only apply that. No, you want to apply all the stuff you've learned. And trust me, I'm getting to your question. I look at the cycle of starter, backup, coach, whatever it is. It's IP, but all it is stuff that we've learned. And if you're the starter, you get to apply the stuff by throwing the ball on Sunday, and there's some glamour behind it, and your legacy might be talked about more as a player. If you're a backup, well, you still have a lot of stuff, and now you're applying it to preparation. You're helping the starter execute the stuff a little bit better, and you're practicing your game days. But now there's also guys that are third string guys, coaches. They're learning how to be coaches, but they know some stuff too. So where's their stuff applied? And in the sports context, I think you get the most from the least and the best from the best when you value everybody's stuff. I think that's why I start, because if I want to take it out of the closet, and I want to know from, hey, you don't have a real glamorous role in our organization, but I know you know some stuff, and I want to pull that stuff out of you because it could help our organization. I think one of the things that happens, I see this in the Silicon Valley all the time. It drives me nuts. We don't value people's journeys. It's titles, it's how much money you make, it's what car you drive, it's where you live. It's some of these things are valued more than, we have some people with some incredible journeys that learned a lot of stuff on the way that could help all of us and could really help some of our systems. Let's let them have input into our systems. And then you do need leaders that govern and delegate what's really important, but we need to value people's stuff. And football's no different. I found that our teams were the best when the guy at 48 on the team, the guy that's not even dressing on Sundays, he's kind of every Sunday morning he's waiting, am I dressing, am I playing on special teams day, or am I not going to get to dress today, I have to sit in the stands. That guy, when he felt valued, when he felt like his input Tuesday through Saturday in our preparation was every bit as important as Ray Lewis's in Baltimore, or Warren Sapp's in Tampa, or Walter Jones and Sean Alexander in Seattle, or Vernon Davis in San Francisco. Like when guy 48 felt like that, we were awesome. We were good. When guy 48 felt like he was guy 48. That's when you stink. And in the quarterback context, like in Seattle, we had something pretty cool, man. What they've done now is incredible, and obviously blowing away what we did in the 2000s, but we took a franchise that had stunk for a while and kind of brought it back and got the 12s, re-engaged with Seattle and opened the new stadium. And I think the way we did it in Seattle was really cool was, whether I was the starter or Matthew was the starter, where I was back, where he was the backup, we had equal investment in the process and we were valued the same. And then every other position started taking the model of quarterback, what we were doing as friends and competitors, saying, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm the dude or if he's the dude, we're all in this together. And guy 48 felt special. And I think that's really important as you're building something, that people feel engaged and invested in the process, but they feel valued.
And that's something that blows me away in the NFL. When I see, the fourth string, quarterback, the third string quarterback, and the second string quarterback, and the first string quarterback, all this camaraderie that exists. Like we're competing. Ultimately,
every day.
You want to be the starter. You want to see your name. You want to get the
ball. I would say you want to be the dude that has the ball.
You want to be that guy. But you're able to develop a camaraderie where you're actually pulling for each other, which we're very familiar with here in Silicon Valley with this frenemies concept that you guys are really kind of competitors, but as long as you're not exact competitors at the exact same company, the exact same thing, you kind of bridge the gap in this frenemy ray, which creates camaraderie that sometimes creates a larger business, creates awesome relationships. How does that camaraderie work? That just blows my mind, that being a competitive person myself, that I would sit there and be happy being the third string guy. That I would know my role and be helping the team.
I don't think you have to be happy. And I do think, so this is a little idealistic. I will say, it's not, it's not, I have another term for this, but it's not hugs and kisses all the time. But I will say this in general, if you fight for respect more than being liked, this can happen. This culture can happen. I think what happens in the quarterback room is, and I have examples of this where I didn't like the guys that were in the room with me, but I did respect them. Like at the end of the day, I did respect how hard they worked, what they had invested, their mind for the game or their talent, whatever it is. You respect everything. And I did respect them because I respected them. I could grow with them. I could have camaraderie with them. I could root for them. The picture I always love is on Saturdays. Do you watch college football? So Saturdays when they show like LSU or one of these SEC schools that has 9 quarterbacks on the roster. I love when the one dude has the headset, the one guy has the game card, and there's like 4 of them line up the sideline. They're all fake signaling, and you know what I mean? Like,
love it.
By the way, so everybody knows that Saturday night, those dudes work for like 2 hours going over signals, because that's their job. And one of them is dealing with the coach who has the headset on. He's the bridge between the starter and the coach on the phone. So all week long, that's his role. And what you get if you're a good coach is you get a group of alphas, because most quarterbacks are alphas, to learn how to respect one another. So you get each one, the most from least, the best from the best. So you're pulling the most out of each one. So by pulling the most out of each one, the other guy respects them. Then you give them a role. You say, go be the best at your role this week. And this isn't your role forever, because that's going to discourage them. But this week, this is your role. This week, I need you to signal better than anybody's ever signaled, because they have a guy stealing our signals. So we got a dummy signal. We got to have we got to dummy the dummy signal so they don't figure that out. So your key this week, hey, and you really need to communicate well with the coach, and you got to be the best guy doing it. You know, you're the dummy signal guy. You need to, whatever it is, you start defining these roles. They've earned the respect of one another by how they've prepared, and then they go execute their role as well as they can for that week. And then you open up competition the next week. By opening up competition the next week, more respect is cultivated, because now each one is grinding in the competitive mode. So it's a cycle that, if done properly, really cool things can come out of that room.
And that's great for entrepreneurs to hear, because bootstrapping entrepreneurs especially are surrounding themselves with other bootstrapping entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're working hard. They're all competitively focused on the same thing. And without clearly defined roles, because everyone sees themselves as the entrepreneur, everyone's
That's
the same
fair.
alpha, everyone's still pushing what the department is. I think that's a great lesson for bootstrapping entrepreneurs, to learn to define roles within your team and execute on them and respect everybody's role. That's great. That's a really, really good parallel. That's something that I think is really important also to entrepreneurs that are in the role of CEO or leading their company, the person that's taking the most responsibility, is how to lead. When you're a hot-headed young kid, you can run a 4.6, throw the ball 60 miles an hour, you hit every throw on the field. If you're cocky, you can't lead.
It's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, so as you're developing leadership, people have to follow you. They don't follow people they don't like. They don't follow people they don't respect. They don't follow people they don't trust. Sure, how did you become that? Because by the end of your career, you became the guy that everyone wanted on their team to mentor and to coach, the Alex Smiths of the world. Front runners brought you in to say, here's our guy. You have proven to be a great leader. From this fiery kid to a leader. Share that with us.
I think the first thing, if anybody wants to lead, I think there's a couple things. You've heard me say this: be very careful what you ask for. You just might get it. That's probably true of a lot of people listening. They wanted to be the CEO of their company. They wanted to be they wanted to change. They didn't want to work for the man anymore. So they went and did this, and they're like, holy crap, what did I do? Well, I tell quarterbacks the same thing. Really? Yeah, it looks pretty cool, huh? Let me give you a little insight to this journey. And one of them's the burden of leadership. And I always say burden with leadership, because it is a burden. You can be a good leader, you can be a bad leader. You're going to lead. You're going to have influence. I was a really good leader in college. Thought that model would work early in my career. It did not, because my leadership model was more based on demanding from those around me, which works in college because you're the best player. But now you're no longer the best player when you go to the NFL early on. So you can't demand, you have to earn the respect. The way you earn the respect is you become a good listener. And I think that's the thing with leadership that people don't, they want to skip over the listening part, like I did. Because you have to listen to the voices around you, and you have to be able to hear what people need. And some of that's different. You have to be pliable in your leadership models too, because what I'm hearing you say, I need to lead you differently than maybe what I'm hearing you say and what your needs are. So that became a big part probably midway through my career, that I started becoming a good listener again. And once I became a good listener and could hear the needs of those around me, teammates, coaches, whatever it was, then I knew how to help maybe inspire them to something better than inspire them to get more out of themselves. Help them through dark times, through setbacks, as we've talked about. And I've tried to do that as a parent, especially with 3 girls, right? You have to hear them all differently, and you definitely have to listen.
I also have 3 girls. Actually, 4.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know if I've directly answered the question, but leadership is, again, my daughter and I heard this conversation the other day. The other thing we do too often is we put leadership, we throw it out there as a term that we think everybody understands what it means, and we don't. It's too big. Leadership's big. I like drilling down a little deeper. What type of leadership are we talking about? So I think in this context, we're probably going back to getting the most from the least and the best from the best. We're trying to inspire people to find something inside of them for the benefit of the business or the benefit of the team that they didn't know they had. I would say listening, being authentic, and being honest would probably be the 3 things that I learned later on in my career that were the most powerful. I had to listen because I had to hear what they needed. I had to be authentic. They needed to know me, my faults, my good, my bad. I couldn't hide behind some false persona. And then being honest with people. People want to know the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, but they want to know the truth. And I was around some poor leaders that constantly lied to people because they wanted people to feel good about themselves. Well, that's not necessarily the right thing to do all the time. So,
could you talk about some leaders that you look to for inspiration that are no longer living and with us? Whether it's a athletic person that maybe passed away recently, or something that we've heard of, read about 1,000 years ago, or it's a political leader, government, business leader, religious leader. Who are some people that you look back to, or you ponder on, and you look to for inspiration as a coach and as an active competitor?
It's interesting that you asked me the question. The first person that came to my mind was Reggie White. I don't know how many people remember Reggie White out there.
Of course.
Reggie, I would never call him a dear friend because I didn't spend that much time with him, but I was able to spend 8, 9, 10 off the football field opportunities with him, or had those opportunities with him. And what I loved about Reggie was he was authentic. He was honest. He had this great way of hearing. He looked you in the eyes and he would hear you. But then he'd always come back. With me specifically, and I wasn't playing very well in my career. He was a rival in the division, to give people some context. But he would always give you the big picture. He let you wrap your brain around the treetop stuff and let you figure out the weeds. He'd always give you the macro, let you figure out the micro. And it's, for whatever reason, that's always resonated with me. And I learned I had to go figure out a bunch of stuff that he challenged me to figure out. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, and I use this term, you've heard me use it, figured outness. And I think we all got to have figured outness, and Reggie was one of those leaders that forced you to figure it out. He'd give you the big thing, but you had to figure out all the other stuff. So Reggie's one. I mean, there's, I'll keep it simple. I'll go with that because it's one kind of off the radar that he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about how to challenge others too.
Now, was he saying this in your ear hole when he was laying on top?
No. He was great in games though. He made you laugh in games. He like, oh, sorry, Trent, I got you again, man. I hope that one didn't hurt too bad. Kind of that dry. I think I was on his. I was one of the quarterbacks where they'd show the Green Bay game. It said Reggie White's all-time sack quarterbacks, and it was like Troy Aikman, Trent Dilfer. It was me and Troy. He owned the most. So I think he probably sacked me 12, 13, 14 times. And but he truly was a gentle giant. He was never trying to hurt anybody, but he was trying to stop you.
Now I guess I could kind of wrap up with this. For entrepreneurs, it's very important to know when to pivot, how to pivot. And not all pivots happen because you've had failure. Some pivots are out of success. You've had success in one stage of something and you want to grow it. You want to start expanding from your first levels of success to the second. You're someone who's done that in an arena that's extremely competitive. It seems like all the retired football players want to work for ESPN. They all want to be commentators. They all want to do that. How did you, when you knew your career was over, start rebuilding your next career in broadcasting?
All right, so this is cool because as a player, please put this in context. I'm not saying I was a good player, but if you're in the NFL and you're starting on Sundays, you're a pretty good player. Okay?
I
So
think so.
I started 120 something games, won some games, lost a lot. People can say what they want to say, but I had a long career as a player in the NFL. Therefore, just automatically qualifying you as being one of the best to do it.
Fair enough.
Now, in the context of quarterbacks, there's a lot that were better than me. But I say that because although that was good, it wasn't best. And as somebody famously said, good is the enemy of great, right? So I wanted to be great at the next thing I did. So I had to look at the good that I had done and pat myself on the back. Say, you know what? I did that well. I'm going to affirm myself for that. And I'm going to carry that on in the next stage of my life. Now, there's this whole other thing, though, that I didn't do very well. Bunch of crud over here. I need to fix that because it's keeping me from being great. So, being honest with ourselves. Saying, okay, what worked and what didn't work the first time.
It sounds like you were living the lean startup. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, probably. But I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so I got to be great at this next thing. Like, that's a non-negotiable. So let's make sure I pull the things that made me pretty darn good as a football player and carry those things over. But let's make sure there's some other things. Complacency was a big thing for me as a player, so I don't get complacent now in this role. I wasn't a very good listener as a player. I try to be a good listener here. But I had a great work ethic as a player. And I did. Didn't always show up in games, but I carried that over. I was resilient as a player. I wanted to carry that over to the next thing. So now I look at this thing. I don't know if I'm great or what I'm doing now, but I know I'm a lot better at what I do now than I was as a player because I took the good and corrected, or I'm correcting the bad.
Yeah. Last couple of things I wanted to ask you about. You know, a lot of people know where you've been and where you're at. Right?
Yeah.
They know you've won the Super Bowl with Baltimore. They know that you influenced Matt Hasselbeck or Alex Smith and the things that you did, where you've been with the NFL, where you've been with Fresno locally here in Santa Cruz County, where you've been with Aptos High School, right? Taking that down to my hometown, Aptos, where I grew up. And they know maybe where you're at, right? They know, where you're doing with ESPN and Elite 11 and Nike Grassroots Football and other things. Where are you going? Like, what's not where your goals, where are your dreams?
Yeah.
Like, where are you going this year, this decade? Where are you going? What are you driving for? What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you up at night? What do you think about that makes you miss appointments? Right?
Yeah.
What makes you press ignore on the phone because you're deep in thought about this dream that you're driving for?
The big thing from a business standpoint or a career standpoint would be I'm trying to constantly find ways to teach the game of football better than it's been taught. And that, and please don't mistake that as I'm trying to be better than Bill Walsh. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not my role. I have this platform where housewives and college students and whoever, people that don't have a direct connection to the NFL are watching us and they want to get something to win the water cooler talk the next day. So I'm constantly looking for ways to articulate it. But when I say teach it, because I'm also teaching it to the Nike Grassroots audience and the Elite 11 audience and to the mainstream football audience. So I'm constantly wrestling with where the game's going, what's the big picture in the game, how's it going to grow, what trends, tactics are lasting, which ones are fads. So that's kind of the big football thing. I think another you talk about dreams. I I dream about a better grassroots environment. I don't like, because I've lived it with athletic daughters, I really don't like what recruiting and what it's done to the entitlement of the young athlete. I think the young athlete isn't getting the most important message, especially the better you are, the less message you're getting that this is a journey. The difficult things are the things you should value. You're not entitled. In fact, the more success you have, the more burden it is to give it back. Instead, we're sending this message of you're good, so you don't have to go to school and you don't have to treat people right, and you can bow your chest out and you could think you're better than the next guy because we're rating them, we're giving them stars and rankings and all this other crap that's blowing up their head. I really want to have an enormous impact in the grassroots football level of changing the culture of it, because I think culture is pretty toxic right now.
Yeah.
There's a question that we ask our clients when we're helping them define their personal brand. So let's take you in the future 20 years. You and your wife, you're walking down Santa Cruz Boulevard. Somebody sees you. What do you want them to think when they see you?
Well, put me on the spot, but it would be around this grassroots influence. 20 years from now?
20 years from now.
My son's teacher played for you through Nike grassroots football, and he's the best teacher our kids ever had. Or my kid's pastor, was at your Elite 11 camp 18 years ago, and now he's the coolest pastor in the history of the world. I want to influence the next generation of influencers. That's what I've said. So that would be the next generation of influencer.
So I want to plug a couple things for you. So if you want to hear more of Trent, he's on ESPN Monday nights. And a loud voice, and a voice that I am glad is on TV. He's done some great things with Elite 11 as he's run that for the last several years. Of course, he has a lot of great leaders around him to make magic happen, but a phenomenal show, doing great things with Nike Grassroots Football. I'm also excited what you're doing with Football Sunday, so footballsunday.com.
That's cool.
And the last thing I want to ask you to do is just like the 31-minute thing, look in the camera. This is a time, I think this video might live on for months, maybe years. What do you want to say to an entrepreneur? I mean, what do you want to directly influence them? Like, you're looking them in the eye, they're looking at you, it's about ready to end. What do you want to say to an entrepreneur?
I'll go back to what I said early on. It's kind of a core value of mine. It's at the edge of uncomfortable is where you really will start to learn. And when you get really uncomfortable is when you'll find your personal greatness. It's in there. You just have to be willing to be uncomfortable enough to find it.
Thanks again for joining us.
You got it.
Glad you're tuned in. You'll see all the stuff on the bottom of the screen if it hasn't already floated by, how you can connect with us, stay involved, leave your comments, subscribe, tell your friends. This is where the magic happens because you tune in and you make an audience for us to connect with.
It's right. Hit me. Hit me. Oh!